Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 71 of the podcast. And today I'm going to talk about the 9 things I've learned from being in business for 9 years. Yes, last week was the 9th anniversary of the Free Motion Quilting Project. And as you know, I take any opportunity to stop and check in and reflect on what I've learned and write that down and just, it's just a constant state of absorbing knowledge and trying to be the best person that I can be and try to grow. It's really easy to stagnate. I can look at, whole years of my life where kind of things stayed the same and I didn't shake things up and I didn't grow and change and really push myself very much. So I like any opportunity I can get to check in and think about things, and that's what I'm going to do today, is share the 9 things that I've learned from being in business for 9 years. And I really feel like all of these things also apply to regular day-to-day life. They're applicable whether you own a business or not. So I hope that you enjoy this episode and hearing this from me. Now, updates around the house. I am working on this little art challenge. So my local arts council puts on a mystery art competition. And just in case you're new to the podcast, we have audio of the podcast, but we also have video. So if you actually like to see what I'm working on and these cute little canvases, you can come and check them out at leahday.com/episode 71. So that's where you can find the video and the audio version of the podcast, plus the show notes. So yeah, this is a little 5x7 canvases. Pick these up from my local arts council. And I was having a little bit of like blank canvas block, and they were setting here and I knew I needed to get them done. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to go look up some inspiration for small canvases, and I got an inspiration having a sun and moon kind of split between 2 canvases and slightly off center. So that's what I decided to do. Drew it out very differently than what the image that I saw online. They kind of had like a smiley face on the sun and a sleepy face on the moon, and I mean, it's cute, but I really wanted to incorporate some free motion quilting designs on this artwork. Then I drew the black. That's kind of an outline. It's real thick with Peepers Cerne relief. And this stuff, basically kind of think of it as forming walls, because I'm going to go over this with some very thick liquidy paint that you basically don't paint with a paintbrush. I played with this stuff before in other podcast episodes. You don't paint it with a paintbrush, you pour it and you kind of drop it in with a dropper, and it's going to fill in all of those little nooks and crevices. Another thing that I'm doing is applying beads. So pulled out my collection of seed beads, and at least on the moon canvas, I am gluing the beads on and creating some extra texture there. I mean, I have this bead collection, and it's pretty humongous because I worked at a bead store when I was in high school. And the nice thing about it is beads don't take up very much space. So even through, the moves and going to college and, moving in with Josh and the whole 9 yards of life that have happened over the years, I've never gotten rid of my bead collection, and I'm really happy because I kind of pick it up and then I'll put it back down again. And I like that I still have beads that I bought or made, because I got into lampwork glass bead making when I was in high school. I made a lot of beads with a torch back when I was in 11th and 12th grade. So I still have all of these beads, and it's nice to be able to incorporate them in other things. Back then, I would have considered gluing beads to anything as evil and not allowed and totally breaking the rules. And, that's just so cheap, Leah. I was 18, 19 years old, but I also had this very limited mentality of what my craft, of what beadwork, what should count. It ended up ruining beadwork for me for years because I basically didn't have time to stitch beads together in the way that I thought was right. And this is why I talk a lot about being careful with putting too many rules on quilting, and saying, all quilts must be made this, and this way. Sometimes that can do more damage than good. Because you start to get bogged down, you start to feel bored. You know, hey, sometimes I mix it up and sometimes I don't pre-wash my fabric. Sometimes I just grab stuff that I've already got, grab silks, grab velvets, you know, do something totally different. Now that finished quilt, I'm not going to go and throw it in the washing machine and curl up with it, you know, in my bed. That's going to be something that I hang on a wall, you know, that might be a hoop quilt or something along those lines. So it's good to know the rules. It's good to have a set system that works for you, but it's also good to shake things up and to question those rules, push yourself out of your comfort zone so you don't get stitched in a box. And that's what I did with beadwork. I stitched myself into a box and just made it no fun. And then now I still have this wonderful bead collection, which I'm very lucky that I kept it. And I'm allowing myself to glue the beads on a canvas, and that's okay. I'm having a great time with it. Now, I did realize that picking this kind of slow method for gluing the beads on, I'm kind of poking everything into place with a needle. I've got a long embroidery needle in my hand, and I'm poking the beads in place, and I'm just using good old-fashioned clear Elmer's glue to glue these on place. And then I'm going to go over the whole surface with a layer of Magic Gloss. This is a product that I found for, let's see here, Sculpty in like clay. And the cool thing about it is it's like a resin, but it's a UV resin, so it doesn't have any of that nasty smell that you usually associate with resin. It's not a two-part, you know, you don't have to add a catalyst, you don't have to stir it to death and back again and then deal with bubbles. You just pour it on and then set it in the sunshine, and the rays of the sun or the UV light will then set the resin. It's really, really cool, and I actually did this, yeah, it's right here. I did this in this little tiny canvas. Sorry for the slam there. I'm pulling something out of the cabinet. This was just a little tree that I was playing with. I did the exact same thing. So I glued brown delicacy beads on the surface. I used the Prisme paints, those thick paints, and then I covered the whole thing with a layer of Magic Gloss. Now the edges of this, because all of the liquidy paints are really thick, the edges of my little canvas with the tree are not all that cool, so I'm either going to build a little frame for it or maybe surround it with leather or some sort of trim. I don't know, I think I'll make this into an ornament or something to hang, might put it on my Christmas tree, I don't know. I've been kind of thinking about in the back of my mind. I'm always getting really frazzled around Christmas time. It's really nice to have gifts on hand that are already ready to go, and I really don't want to get caught again in the middle of December. I hate shopping. I really do. It's not my thing. I don't enjoy crowds. I don't enjoy, you know, feeling like I'm in a hurry, you know, to buy something for someone. So I've been thinking about just having different things made. So it's already made. I already have basically a gift that could be given to anyone. I mean, anyone would like a tree ornament. So having little things made, giving myself the opportunity to experiment and play and be creative on small canvases or in a small project, you know, like the little zippered pouches. I made more than a dozen zippered pouches and finishing those off so that way they're quick and easy gifts. You know, fill it full of nuts or candy or something like that. It's a quick and easy Christmas gift. And having it already on hand means I don't have to, you know, get to that point, that craziness of December, and then suddenly feel guilty that I don't have lots and lots of stuff, you know, in that wonderful handmade gift. I think the time to focus on that is over the summer and, you know, or, you know, just simply throughout the year. So yeah, that's what I'm working on today, just applying a little bit of glue, poking the beads into place, being a little neurotic, and Josh was laughing at me. He was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm making sure all of the beads are standing on their sides so their holes aren't facing up." And he gave me a look like, there are so many things to do with your time and you are doing that, really. But, you know, the thing about that I look at this is, you know, this is an experiment more than anything else. It's fun, it's relaxing, and I think that's all a good thing. And it's not going to take forever. I'm not being super, super picky with this. I'm going to get it done and then get on to painting it and be ready for the next thing, and that'll be fun. So, big, huge thing, my sample book finally came in. This is Mally the Maker. So this is the fiction novel that I have been working on for almost a year now. And yeah, this is the sample copy. And I got it, and there's always that temptation when you get to this point of the book to be like, it's done, it's done, it's done. And then you start looking at it and go, oh, there's a mistake on the cover. And then, open it up and it's like, oh, that could use a tweak. And oh, that other thing, just, it's like tidying up. Yes, I could launch it right this second. Yes, I could start the pre-order right this second, but it would just be that much more professional if I fixed the margins and, squished and squeaked and just tweaked it one last time. And I'm also reading through it one more time too. Just things get missed. It's easy. And also looking at paragraph spacing and stuff. This is stuff that's really hard to see until you get a physical copy of the book in your hands. Especially this is a 6x9 sized book, and printing that out on 8.5 by 11, you don't have a box, you don't have a perimeter of the page to know what size everything is fitting into. So it's very hard to visualize what it's going to look like finished until you actually get the physical copy. But it came in, and it's just, I'm delighted with it. And it was sort of funny. Susie St. James, she commented last week, she was like, well, you made it sound like it was going to be totally amateur, and it looks really good. And I had to laugh whenever I read that comment, Susie, because in my head, I'm a total amateur. And in my head, it's never good enough. But even I can look at this and go, I did a really good job on that. I did a really good job on that. And what I love, if you remember a few weeks ago, actually it was a couple months ago, I was playing around with watercolors and creating watercolor washes that had basically a continuous line image that I could then print on fabric and do different things with. That is my watercolor. That's the color on the cover. So the blue, the purple, all of those colors are actually watercolor I painted, then put in Photoshop, then put in Illustrator, and then used in my cover art. So it really does feel like this cover has been coming together over this, course of many, many months. And I don't think it would have as good a look if it was just flat, just a flat solid blue or a flat solid purple. I do need to do a few tweaks here and there. I lost some lines in this corner. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Miss Bunny's colors and her skin tone, Mally's skin tone, all of those were just solids, and I want to actually paint those and scan them in and do the whole 9 yards. It's just a few little tweaks here and there. Probably going to have to reset the entire layout though. And Josh, I kind of was like, I'm going to need to do some editing here. It's going to need to be re-uploaded again. And, we're both wanting this to get out and get done. But at the same time, there's also that I want to get it right. If I get the layout perfect on this book, then I don't have to worry about it with any of the future books, because I'll basically use this as a template for all future books. So it makes the most sense to get this solid, make sure it's 100% perfect, as perfect can be, no such thing as perfect, but, as perfect as I can get it. And then all future books will be that much easier and that much faster to produce. So I still can't tell you the day it's going to go on pre-order. It's going to be soon, I promise. It's not going to take me forever to make these edits. I'm going to be working on that today, and pretty much for the rest of the week I'm going to be working on editing and getting this thing together and making these little tweaks. I'll then have to buy another sample copy, and that takes a couple days to come in. So it's a process, and I don't want to rush saying, hey, pre-order starts on X and X date, and then have a scramble if something else comes up that also needs to be changed and I need to upload it again. And, there's a whole lot of behind the scenes stuff that, we just don't even see it, because when we see a book, we just see a, beautiful finished book. There's a whole lot more that goes into every little thing, every little detail of the book. Down to, the size of the font, the space between the font, the space between the paragraphs, the space of the indent. This is stuff that it really does make me scream at my computer, because I'm like, I'm not a book layout artist. But it does make me come back constantly with gratitude to say, we live in an amazing time, and you can find out anything that you want to know if you figure out what to search for online. And so I have gotten so much help putting this book together and making it look as professional as it does, just from reading different forums and reading different authors' advices. The font that I used was, pulled off of a guy that kind of made combination font suggestions, and I really fell in love with one. I did have a situation where the R in Queen didn't look quite right. Or no, it was the N looked like an R, and for this book, that would have been a bad thing. So I needed to edit the font. I needed to actually tweak that letter in so that way the letter was fixed. I ran some Google searches online, found a font editor. I never knew you could edit fonts, but that's pretty cool. So yeah, I have learned things I did not even know were possible. I've downloaded programs I didn't know existed and been able to change things and get things just exactly perfect just for this book, and that feels amazing. So yeah, still can't say an exact date on the pre-order, but they are definitely coming soon, and my goal is to be shipping before my birthday, which is October the 8th. So I'm hoping it's going to be pretty soon here. And that's good because, you know, my goal is always get it done before the Christmas season. It gets really, really crazy to get anything in stock and keep things running smoothly through November and December, just simply because, you know, there's so much shipping going on and it just gets nuts. So I'm really aiming to get these going out and ready, having them ready to go by October 8th. So one last update. We have our first block for the Leaf Peepers quilt. That's this beautiful green block. And you can find this, Sherry and I both shared tutorials. So I taught you a 2 at a time half square triangle method. And that basically will show you how to stitch all of the half square triangles you need for the block. And you need a lot. And you need to make sure that you stack all of your fabrics together the right way because there's a lot of combinations of color here. So make sure to check out that tutorial. You can find all of the tutorials we've shared so far linked up at leahday.com/leaf. And then you'll also want to check out Sherry's tutorial. Sherry taught you exactly how to piece the block together. So taking all of those half square triangles, putting them together into this beautiful arrangement and piecing it precisely. And Sherry and I, you know, we're 2 different quilters. We have 2 different methods. Make sure to watch Sherry's videos so that way you're kind of getting her bent and her methods, and then also watch my videos and you'll see my methods, and between the 2 of us you're going to learn a whole lot. So come and check out the pattern and join in this fun quilt along at leahday.com/leaf. So that's pretty much it for the updates around the house. And now it's time to hear about the 9 things I've learned from being in business for 9 years. I hope you enjoy this podcast. And of course, come and find more podcast episodes at leahday.com/podcast. Until next time, let's go quilt. Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to episode 71 of the podcast. And today I'm going to share 9 things that I've learned from being in business for 9 years. It's kind of hard to believe, actually, that the Free Motion Quilting Project is 9 years old. And I like any excuse to check in and just see how things are going and kind of, I don't know, just have that sense of reflection, but then also kind of look forward and say, okay, how do I want things to change and where am I going? I'm always looking for an excuse to do that. And 9 years in business is certainly a good time to stop and check in. And then also it's good to take that moment to pat yourself on the back whenever you've done something pretty cool. And staying in business for 9 years is a feat. It really is. It's a big deal. I don't know if you've ever seen the statistics on most businesses fail within 2 years. You know, those are pretty scary statistics, and I have weathered a lot of storms, thankfully, with Josh at my side. It has not always been perfect. It has not always been easy, but I think the thing that I've come back to time and time again is that I love what I do. I love running a business, and I'm very passionate about it. So I hope that you enjoy hearing these 9 things that I've learned. If you are getting started running a business or interested in taking your quilting hobby and turning it into something, you know, lucrative, then this might be helpful for you. And it's also, some of this stuff can be applied to quilting in general or life in general as well. So tip number 1, or thing I've learned number 1, is this is my business. Well, technically it's Josh and mine, but even still, We have to run it in our own way, in a way that reflects us and works for our family. And this is really tough because, at least in the quilting world, there's kind of a set way of doing things where most people run their businesses one way. And the most common is to travel and teach and do lectures and workshops and write books and make DVDs or online classes and kind of do this really pretty overwhelming combination of different things. And potentially make show quilts as well. It's a pretty long list. And I realized early on that I really couldn't handle that. I could do online classes. Yay, that worked out fine. I could do books, and it's taken me a few years to kind of figure out a system for that, but I could do books. But I could not do the traveling and teaching thing. It just didn't work for me. It didn't work for my family. Keep in mind, 9 years ago, I had a 2-year-old. I was not leaving the house to go and do workshops or lectures when James was 2. It just wasn't going to work. And then two, being an online business and thinking in terms of being online, the whole concept of leaving to go and teach 20 to 60 people in a workshop when I could put a video online and reach potentially 2,000 or 3,000, it just didn't numbers-wise ever make a lot of sense to me. And it wasn't easy for me to try and go and travel and teach. But it was really tough to say no to that. What was interesting is that when I first started my business before the Free Motion Quilting Project, I had wanted to travel and teach. I thought that might be something I could do, and I had sent out some inquiries here and there, and most everyone that got one of those letters kind of came back with, yeah, no thank you, I don't know who you are, not interested, that kind of thing. But then as soon as I started the Free Motion Quilting Project, and specifically when I started putting video on the blog, that's when everything kind of took off, and I suddenly started getting all of these requests, and I immediately got booked up for about 6 months. So I was booked up for 6 months, and I had these contracts. And, kind of scary stuff started happening. And then I got a contract, on my lap that was like in the next year. So it was a year later because that guild had been booked up. And I looked at that contract and thought about it. And I was like, I don't even know what's going to be happening in my life in a year. How can I possibly sign a contract to say that I'll be able to travel when I don't know what my life's going to be looking like in a year? So at that point, I kind of put the brakes on traveling and teaching. I fulfilled my commitments. I went all of those places that I had agreed to go, but really pulled back from that. And I'm really glad that I did, because now having 9 years of experience in business, I can say that traveling and teaching doesn't work for me. Every time I have tried to do it, and I have tried to do it multiple times, I tried doing the big show thing. I've tried, doing the kind of like the just in my area thing. It just doesn't work for me, because no matter how organized I am, it always takes at least a week to kind of pull all the quilts together and get my thoughts together as far as what I'm teaching. And, it just pulls me away from all of the things that I'm usually doing. And in that case, it also pulls me away from my family in the sense of actually leaving the house to travel. And then when I come home, I'm introverted. Now, that does not mean shy, but introverted means I only gain energy from being completely by myself. So when I would come home from these events, it would take me a week or 2 weeks to really get back on track, to get my energy rebuilt, to just feel like I can get back in the groove of everything. And then typically, then I'd be ready to go, somewhere else. It's like the very next month I'd have something else that I needed to do. And I have to say, I fully respect the teachers that do this on a weekly basis. I will honestly say I don't know how they do it because it's incredible. And it's not just, and I know what it looks like. If you're a part of a guild or a quilt shop and people come regularly, it seems magical because you show up and there they are and they're so pretty and they've got all these pretty quilts and, everything's all laid out and it seems so easy. But I promise you, there is so much behind the scenes work to that. There is the schlepping of heavy bags through the airport. I had a bag at one point break as I was, it kind of came off the airport, off the airplane broken. And so I'm struggling with like 2 or 3 super, super heavy bags and one of them is broken and won't roll anymore. It really is a nightmare and it's exhausting. And this is exhausting for me, when I was 30. I can't imagine how hard that is for quilters that are older and, kind of some physical stuff, some physical issues can start coming in. So I can absolutely say hats off to all of the quilters that travel and teach and do this professionally and do it for years. And please, if you have quilters coming to your quilt guild on a regular basis, make sure to thank them for all that they do because it is a tough job. It's not easy. And it's hard on your body too. So just kind of keep all of that in mind and know that that is the reason why I don't travel and teach. You're not going to see me at your local quilt guild. I don't go to even the big shows because when it pulls me away from my day-to-day life and from what I'm sharing and doing online on a weekly basis, it just doesn't work. The juice is not worth the squeeze. So that's why I don't run my business that way. But it's very hard not to run down a path of comparisonitis. Because I make a different choice, I've had to work double time on feeling like I'm secure and stable and that my choice is solid and that it's okay. And I don't need to go compare myself to that other woman and I don't need to go compare myself to that other dude, and how they're making their business work for them. You have to run it in your own terms and not let it run you. And this is the thing about quilting and the quilting industry in particular. You have to be very clear on your goals and what you want out of your business because I really firmly believe that if you're not careful, it can chew you up and spit you out and you'll end up broken and battered at the end of it. It's overwhelming, just even making one quilt and making the pattern for it. There's a lot of work and time that goes into that and having very clear, expectations of how this is all going to be working. It's really, really smart. And then also, having a game plan so that way how money is coming in and how money is going out. And that goes straight into my second thing, and that is don't get in debt, ever. I am in debt for my house and a piece of land that I bought a few years ago, and that's it. We have credit cards that we charge out our products, and that's the products that we are buying and then shipping out to our customers. Those credit card bills get paid off every single month like clockwork. And that is my number one tip, number one absolute fundamental thing in my business is I never go in debt. And, and then I'm always looking to make sure that we have plenty of money in reserve. So let's say something happens and the internet breaks and, everything stops, everybody stops buying. This is something that you kind of have to think about. You have to think doom and gloom just in case something bad happens. Well, do I have enough cash on hand to pay outstanding debts? And it's making sure that we're solid enough that we're able to do that. And that's, been a process, I'll be honest. And we started very small and have slowly grown bigger and bigger over the years. So I started my business with $300 of extra cash. I'm not kidding. Really, it was $300. And that money was actually made from my skincare business that I was running first. And I ran that business for about a year. I'm still a direct sales consultant for Labri Pure and Natural. Excellent skincare, still use it. But that's not my main focus. But that 1 year in 2007, that was my main focus. And I built that business enough so that it could provide me just a little bit of extra cash. It was mostly my fabric buying money. I took that extra $300 and I bought 9 products. And those 9 products were the start of my online quilt shop. And how that worked, really simply, just in case you're curious, all you need to be able to get a wholesale number to be able to buy from the quilting distributors is a tax-free sale number. And that just requires registering with your state to say, hey, you're in business. That gives you a state sales tax number. You then need to file state sales tax every month or every quarter, depending on your state. And then that allows you to be able to wholesale products and then sell them on a website or in person. And that's how I started my business. And that very simple breakdown of steps was elusive to me. And then I spoke to one very nice person that explained how to do it. And then I was in business and able to buy products and sell them. Started out with just a few, just a handful of products, and then have slowly built my website and built my quilt shop. Now, I don't even know how many products that we carry. A lot of them are digital downloads, which is great because it doesn't require a physical item coming in and potentially going out of stock. But I also love physical products. We just worked with Grace Company to create rulers, and of course also always looking for new feet and new things that will help quilters make the quilts that they want to make. So there's kind of a balancing act. It's expanding and adding new products, but also being careful not to add so many that the shop is overwhelming to maintain or difficult to maintain, but always coming back to pay the bills at the end of every month. And that is every single month, all the time. I've gotten in trouble a few times with expenses, and just like 1 or 2 years kind of stand out in my mind when things changed and things got tight and something happened. Maybe it was a bad quilt-along year or something like that. And there's a few years that stand out in my mind because I would have kind of a rolling ticker in the back of my head as far as expenses, and then I go, wait a minute, do we have enough to cover all of our debts? And it's really good to constantly have that numbers kind of rolling in your head, so that way don't buy unless the income is coming in. So that's my second tip, and second thing I've learned. Third thing I've learned is avoid contracts. And I know this sounds weird. This is more of a weird thing about me. I'm not a fond person for signing my name to things and contracts that are binding forever and, will lock me into a system or will lock me into a particular thing. Certainly no right of first refusals. What that is, a right of first refusal is a contract with a publisher to say that if you have another idea for a book, the publisher gets the right to say, we want to publish it, even if you don't want to publish with them again. So I'm very careful about any contract that I sign. This is why I'm a self-publisher. The little bit of regular traditional publishing that I've done, I have been very careful about my contracts. The online classes that I have taught, I have been very careful about those contracts. I am not afraid of saying, no, I will not sign that, because it takes away my rights, or it takes away the rights I have to a design or the rights that I have to a quilt that I have designed. It is very important to be reading contracts very thoroughly. It is very, very important to only sign your name to something if you fully understand what you are signing away. And I've heard horror stories from quilters who have signed contracts with book companies that then take the book and basically chop it up and sell the patterns out of the book individually on places like Etsy.com. I mean, that basically, shoots the value of the book in the foot. I've heard horror stories, and I come back to, you got to read the contract. You got to know what you're signing. And if you can't understand it, hire a lawyer to look at it, because this can be potentially a lot of money, and it can be damaging. And it can be damaging for years down the road, because if you've signed a contract that basically says you're stuck with that publisher for the rest of your life, well, then you're stuck with that publisher for the rest of your life. And that isn't any fun. So for the most part, I don't sign contracts unless I absolutely have to. And then when I do sign a contract, I'm double and triple check that the scope is narrow, it is too focused on that particular project or product, and I'm very careful about the wording. And if, let's say it's a book, and the rights to that book, let's say that the publisher doesn't want to print it anymore, that the rights revert back to me fully, so that way I then have the right to go and put that back in production and print it a different way. This is the way, one of the reasons why a lot of quilting books have gone out of print, and it's really sad. This is hard work. To make a book is an enormous amount of effort. And you might only sell 1 or 2 copies, a month. I've got some books that I sell 1 or 2 copies a month, but I still have the right to print that and keep it in print on demand, because I never sign my rights away from it. And I think that's really, really important, and something that a lot of people don't talk about a lot. There are some predatory businesses out there, and they prey on quilters, quilting business owners that are eager and excited, and maybe not necessarily reading the fine print. So be careful. Don't sign a contract unless you absolutely have to. Okay, fourth thing is organization. And this is something I am working on a continual basis. Like even today, I printed out a new sheet that will help me organize my posting, my video posting. I'm still learning this. You should see my desk. It's always a nightmare. I am not an organized person. I like to have my tools in the drawer, and I know where they are. It drives me nuts when my scissors go walking away. I like my desk to be clean. It very rarely is. I really love it when I sit down to post something and I have the file with the text and the images all ready to go and the video is already uploaded. I really hate it when I sit down and everything's in all different places and I have to search and hunt for everything, and and I haven't even uploaded the video yet, or something, some disaster like that. Right now I am posting 5 videos a week with text. That's a lot of stuff to be posting. That's a lot of photos to be editing. That's a lot of videos to be editing. Organization has to be solid in order to make that happen and it not take all day. So it's a continual working thing. It's a continual habit I'm trying to build. It's not perfect, but it's a work in progress. So organization, it can always be improved. And I do believe in systems. Now, systems are higher level than just simply being organized. Being organized is kind of a blanket statement. A system is more of how am I going to be organized, such as I'm going to shoot all the photos for my posts on my phone. I'm going to then do all of the branding, that's putting my logo, putting my, the link, if there's a direct link to my website on it, then I'm going to do all of that on my phone. That way the photos on my phone so I can share it to Instagram. It's also on my phone so I can upload it to Dropbox. I have an alternative. I could do that on my computer, but then the image will have to be transferred. It's like the rabbit hole of figuring out the order of things. It's a little bit more complicated than you probably want to hear, but basically coming up with a system to say photos on the phone, logos on the phone, and then that's the system, that's the rule, that's the way it's always done. So I never have to go searching for where that thing is. It's always done the same way. So I'm still developing these on a weekly basis, and especially learning to delegate. I'm trying, now that we have archived our Facebook groups, I'm trying to give more of this to Josh to say, I can write the post via dictation. I can dictate the post. I can do the photos so that they're done. I can do the video so that's done. Josh can be the one that takes everything and puts it all together. And then he's the English major, so he can double check my writing and edit for me and put it all together and actually put it in the blog post. That's delegating and being able to trust someone else to do some of the work. And it's really hard for me. I have a hard time delegating anything, you know, and it is a process of creating the system, because Josh doesn't know where those photos are. He's not going to even know what photo goes to what post, you know, where it needs to be easy. And it's figuring out, okay, how do I build the system that facilitates that cooperation so that he can help me, and then I feel less frazzled, and I can then go write another book, I can go shoot more videos, I can, you know, I can do the things that I really need to be doing. So yeah, organization, big one, big one. Fifth thing is, don't fear the tough call. And just experienced this recently. You know, as I mentioned, we archived our Facebook groups. We've made tough calls, you know, a lot of different tough calls over the years. I am very lucky to have someone with me, you know, and Josh and I have been running the business together since 2010. It's really nice to have that second person to bounce ideas off of. And Josh is very different from me. He's very risk adverse. I'm an adventurer. I like to try new things. So we're good balances for this business. But ultimately, the tough calls have usually come down to me, where I've ultimately said, we're not doing that anymore, or, you know, we're archiving the groups. And Josh has kind of said, okay, I agree with that. You know, sometimes he's expressed concern or reserve. Honestly, you know, we waited on that decision for almost a year because he was really worried about the impact that it could have on our business. You know, and it's one of those things. Running a partnership is different from running a business solo, and that has been sometimes a struggle as far as our personalities clashing and our opinions clashing. And the thing, should be actually number 6. I'll just go ahead and say this, number 6, and that is, you know, to always be in sync with your business partner. And I'd say if you don't have a business partner, or you're never going to have a business partner, then be in sync with yourself, meaning always check in and make sure that you're building your business in a way that reflects your values, and you're also building the business in a way so it supports your lifestyle and what you want to be doing and what you're dreaming of doing. But then also don't move forward on a project unless you and your business partner, meaning yourself, or your real business partner, is completely in agreement. You know, we've made a lot of decisions over the years. Sometimes I've kind of said, I'm going to go revamp this book, and I've kind of run off on this tangent for months, and Josh just kind of sat back going, I don't think you need to do that. And that is, you know, that isn't any fun to you know, I'm working super hard and kind of slaving away over something, and Josh is kind of sitting back going, yeah, you really didn't need to do that. And I resolved after that happened the last time, this was a project several years ago, I resolved after that whole situation, I said, I'm never going to do that again unless we are in complete agreement and unless we're working together towards the same goal. I'm not going to pursue it. And sometimes that means things take a back seat. We wait on them. You know, sometimes I realize it's not as important as I think it is. But I think it's really super important to be on the same page and to be moving forward together, dancing the same dance, right? And, you know, this is also more than just a business partnership between Josh and I. It's also making sure that we're not taking that business stuff and bringing it into our personal lives. And that brings me to number 6 or number 7. I think we're on number 7 now. Don't hold regret or resentment against yourself or against anyone else. So as I mentioned, I've made mistakes in my business. I've reached points where I've gone, wait a minute, do we have enough money to cover these expenses? We've run into disasters of spending too much and you know, traffic not being there, sales not being there to balance it out. And it's really easy to hold that against yourself and to beat yourself up. Like, oh my gosh, you know, what was I thinking? And how did I make that mistake? And, you know, and then there's an even stronger urge to blame. Well, that wasn't my fault. It was your fault. You made this decision, or you wanted to do this, or, you know, it was your idea to buy that giant machine. I mean, we could go down a long rabbit hole on that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you got to start every day as a new day, learn from the mistakes, and keep on going. There is nothing more toxic to a relationship in general than resentment and regret. And holding resentment against someone else is nasty. It's not any fun to be the other person on the other end of that. And it's no fun to be the person, mucking around in resentment either. I see that as, it's toxic waste. It's a toxic waste emotion. And it's hard to let go of it. It's a habit, though. Just like anything else that can develop a habit, holding on to things can become a habit. Holding on to negativity, holding on to anger. It's a habit, and you got to learn how to let that stuff go and not dwell on it. It happened. Figure out your way out of it. Hustle. It's kind of like, all right, pull on your big girl panties and get your way out of it. Dwelling on all of the who did it and why it happened and how, what, when, where, all that kind of stuff, it's not necessary. Usually it's pretty obvious what happened, what the mistake was. Learn from it, move on, hustle, get through it, and that's how I think we've stayed in business. I think if I had, stayed in a stuck state and blame game, it would have been really easy to throw in the towel. Oh, I'm just so upset, and why isn't this working out? All that kind of stuff. And then you can get some ego in all of that too. You got to be careful about that as well. Well, I've done all of this, and I, posted 1,200 videos, and I deserve, be really careful about that because, at any point in time, it's kind of like, well, maybe not. Maybe I don't deserve anything. Maybe that hustle hasn't been enough, or maybe I've been hustling in the wrong direction. That's the thing. This is a constantly changing world. There are no guarantees. And this brings me on to number 8. I think we're on number 8. Know what you really want and work towards building that life. We talked about this last week with Dream Goddess. Work towards building that life. Be sharing what you need to share, what is very valuable and important to you, not just what you think will be the best ranking video on YouTube. That's why I do this podcast, and I mean, if I compare my video views, are they the best? No. And if I run down that comparison game in the first place, am I going to be a happy person? No. I like to share. I like to be open. I really love this podcast because it gives me an opportunity to share things that I'm not able to share otherwise. And it takes a lot of time, though. I mean, there's a lot of other things that I could be doing in the, an hour or 2 hours that it takes sometimes to film a podcast. But I love doing it. So that's why I continue to do it. It's valuable to me. It gives me what I want and what I need on a weekly basis. And that's what's important. You have to look at not just, I'm doing this because it's going to yield XYZ results. It's also, I'm doing this because this is what feeds my soul. And this is what makes me happy. And at the end of the day, that's what's important. I make goddess quilts that I don't show, that I just make for me, and I make them for me. And that's important. We have to also be sharing the things that make us happy. Can't just be going through the motions just to get a paycheck. Otherwise, I could just go get a job from somewhere else, right? And this, kind of ties into why I wrote Mally the Maker, why I pursued writing a book for a year. And a lot of it had to do with just saying, it's really important for me to try this different thing, to try fiction writing, to see where this leads, to be able to create a world with words rather than having to design a quilt and write a quilt pattern. And then also, kind of scratching that itch to learn a new technique, to learn a new skill, fiction writing, and to see if, hey, maybe this book could influence potentially a new generation of quilters. I don't know. That's my finger cross. I really, really hope so kind of thing. But I think pursuing things just for the hope that it will work out is enough. And you have to be willing to, take the chance. And Mally the Maker was written in 1 to 2 hours every morning for, 6 to 8 months. It wasn't a huge time investment. It was something fun and pleasurable. And that's why I pursued it. It was never something that I had to get done on a time limit. I had to get it done tomorrow or something like that. It was always fitting it within my schedule as I could, fitting it into my life as I could. And then in the end, I feel like I've created something really, really cool. So I think we have to constantly respect that, and not just me making the quilt that we think will sell. And I do see this a lot. I mean, I go to Quilt Market and I see, all of the different fabric designs and all of the different quilt designs, and there's a lot that just simply looks alike, and I've even run into this problem myself. I'm not poking fun at or poking at anybody here particularly. I'm talking about myself. I've run down that rabbit hole before and needed to design 5 quilts on a 2-month time limit. And of course, if I have that limited little splice of time, I'm going to go for what's easiest. I'm going to go with traditional piecing. I'm not going to step out of the box and do something weird or different that's challenging to write the pattern for, because I don't have enough time. So, this is the thing. It's like, it's looking at the business, and how much time we have to work on any particular thing, and it's picking the thing that's valuable to me, that means a lot to me personally, but it's also picking the thing that I think, maybe, cross my fingers, hopefully will, pay off. It's kind of a mix of both more than anything else. And for me personally, I've tried a lot of things and been creative, and, hey, I'll try that once. I'll try fabric design once. I'll try pattern writing once. I'll do these different things and I'll give them a shot. And then ultimately, whatever sticks, I keep doing, and whatever doesn't stick, I stop doing. And that's what works for me. Now, my last tip is, and this is the thing I've learned over and over and over again. I think I'm going to continue to have to learn it over and over and over again. And that is, it is not going to be easy, ever. Every once in a while, especially my new little system for being organized with my videos, oh, this will make it so easy. No, it'll still be hard. But the caveat with that is, the more you do it, the better it will get. The more you do anything, the easier, the faster, the better it will get, overwhelmingly. The very first quilting video I ever made took hours. It took hours and hours and hours. And it was hours and hours and hours to edit it. And then it was still terrible when I put it up. And, ultimately that one video, if I was still making videos the same way and it was still taking that long, I would absolutely not still be making videos. But you get faster with every single one. So, the first 10 videos were the hardest. They were the worst. They took forever. And now I can sit down and I can shoot 10 videos in 2 or 3 hours, batch upload them, batch edit them. I can do everything so much faster. I've developed those systems and got those systems in place so that the process isn't so time consuming. However, because I have more time, then I have more things to do. So instead of, 1 or 2 posts a week, I'm doing right now 5 posts a week. And, it goes back to staying organized, getting organized and making sure everything works. But also accepting the fact that there are going to be hard days. There are going to be days that I try and upload the book and it spits it back at me and says there's an error. There are times that I catch a typo and then I have to upload the whole thing again, and things get glitched out, things slow down. I expect something to take 1 day, it ends up taking 5. I think the thing that you have to come back to, and it's the thing that I have learned over and over again, is to not expect it to be easy. To instead try to incorporate a mentality of adventure, and that this is going to be always an adventure. It's always going to be a challenging adventure, and that's okay. That's what's fun about this. That every day is kind of the same, but every day is also different. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to pursue. And that's the point. If I was still doing exactly the same thing I was doing in 2009, I don't think I'd still be in business. I've mixed it up. I've tried a lot of different things. And I hope in the next 9 years, I continue to try a lot of different things. when I've had a struggle year, when I've had a bad year, a lot of the reason why, when I can look back and reflect honestly on what's happened, a lot of times it's because I'm not thinking creatively, and I'm not looking at things going, hey, how can I mix it up? How can I try something new? How can I, do something that I'm really excited and energetic about? And those years have suffered. So it's constantly being able and having the energy to step back and be able to say, what do I really want to do? And can I do that? Can I make that really happen? And this also gets back to delegating, asking for help, getting the help that I need. It is really hard to hand something to someone else and say, I trust you to do this for me. Think about this for yourself. Could you hand fabric to your husband or your dad and say, can you cut this up for me to make a quilt? It's tough. It's tough to relinquish control. And it's something that I have had to come back to time and time again, that by relinquishing control and time to do one thing, I can then go do the thing that only I can do. Only I can write the next Mally the Maker book, right? Only I can outline that and get that started. But Dad can be prepping up the fabric that's going to go in the next quilt along. And Josh can be, organizing all of the materials that go into the next blog post. And it's okay to delegate. I'm here to say that the whole idea that, I'm a one-woman army and I do everything all by myself, it's not true. I could not do this without my dad, without Josh behind me. And I couldn't have run my business successfully for 9 years without my husband. There have been many, many times that Josh has saved me from making a catastrophic business mistake. So I absolutely believe in the power of getting help when you need it, asking for help before you need it is really good, but being able to identify that and say, I do need help with this, and it's okay to not do it all by yourself. And it's also a-okay to say no. I say no more than I say yes, and I think that's another reason why I've been in business for 9 years. I say no to traveling and teaching. I say no to going to most big quilt shows. I say no to leaving the house on a daily basis. It really comes down to, what do you want to do, and what is the most important thing? And for me, grocery shopping is not the most important thing on my list. Finishing a quilt, or coming up with a list of designs that I want to shoot, or outlining the next Mally the Maker. Those are things that are high on my priority list that definitely need to be done. Grocery shopping, not so much. So I hope that you can see that, this list, I'm thinking back on it, I did not know any of this 9 years ago. I could probably have guessed about, being able to say no, but I know for a fact I didn't have the ability to say no confidently 9 years ago. So this is a lot that I have learned over these 9 years, and I have made so many mistakes. I have reached a point of near catastrophe on more than one occasion, and it has not been pleasant. But I gotta say, being able to share this and say this out loud is wonderful, because I don't ever think that life is perfect for anyone, because it's not. That's not reality. We can put up pretty pictures on Instagram, but that doesn't mean that, that just means that all the junk is kind of pushed away to the side. It's not reality what you see on social media. That's only what someone has shared as the absolute best of the best, or the picture that they want you to see. So I feel very, very fortunate and very grateful for the 9 years that I've been in business. And I think that's my last tip. That'll be my bonus number 10. And that is, always be grateful for whatever you have. You have brought whatever you have into your life by choosing it, by saying yes to it, even by saying yes by default. Someone gives you fabric that you don't want, by taking it, you're saying yes to it. By taking a quilt that you don't necessarily want, a quilt top from someone else, and say, hey, can you finish this for me? By taking it, you're saying yes to it. And I realize that I have been very careful with what I've said yes to. I have said yes to the things that I really want to pursue, that I'm really passionate about pursuing. But it's taken me 9 years to be able to get there and be able to do that consistently. And even I make mistakes. There are some things that I've said yes to over the last 2 years that I'm kind of going, I'm not so sure about that. It'll work out or it won't work out. We'll see. You know, it's a steady, continual adventure. That's why I love, and I'm so passionate about running my business, is that it's always something new to learn. There's always new challenges to overcome. I think the number one thing, if you want to be in business and stay in business, is just simply follow number 2, and that is stay out of debt. And that pretty much will set you right. But yeah, I feel so immensely gracious and thankful for being in business so long. And so very thankful that you are here and enjoying the podcast and following along with me. If you'd like to find more podcast episodes, come and find them at leahday.com/podcast. Until next time, let's go quilt.